Now, controversial former Communications Minister Faith Muthambi stands accused of abuse of power for interfering with the SABC's editorial independence. Chairperson of the SABC inquiry, Mr. Joe Tlholo, released the findings of a year-long inquiry into the public broadcaster's editorial policies. Allegations of political editorial interference and sexual harassment were investigated by the Commission of Inquiry, which was set up in May last year. Tlholo says, amongst other recommendations, the Commission says the appointments of those appointed under Hlaudi Motsoeneng's tenure will be reviewed. Our reporter Mbali Tetani was at the SABC for that briefing and joins us now. Good afternoon to you, Mbali.
Good afternoon.
So what was the key takeout for you at that commission and rather at the reporting from the commission today?
Well, what stuck out for me, when he even began his report, we could see Joe Tlholo basically saying that what he found in his report was that power and authority was used to intimidate some of the staffers at the SABC. He even went on to even further single out the likes of the former Communications Minister, Faith Muthambi, and a former member of the board, Ellen Shabalala, and basically saying that they used their political power or use their power to sort of influence some of the decisions being taken by the executives at the SABC, and using that they were also intimidated to even take some of the decisions that they did take while they were at the SABC. What also struck me was that I know that a number of us were looking at the whole issue around the ANC. There was talk, in the industry saying that the ANC is one of the people also using their power to interfere. Joe Tlholo says that there was no evidence yet that they found looking into that specific issue, but he described a place or an organization that had been crippled by all of the interference that was going on at the SABC, found that people were intimidated, staff morale was low, and it was just an organization that really needs to renew itself.
I think what South Africans would be interested in knowing is whether or not this interference affected the nature and the angle of the reporting of news. Is that something that was touched upon at all?
When you look at the likes of Faith Muthambi coming to the fore and Ellen Shabalala influencing the top executives at the news organization. Even when you look through the report itself, there's a number of incidents where they talk about meetings that were held when the bosses would even say, no, we're not doing that story. So one would assume that if you single out a communications minister and if you single out a board member in terms of how they cover the news, and these instructions obviously coming from the former COO, you can clearly see that there was the interference there in that part, Tammy.
You also spoke about the issue, and so did Mr. Joe Tlholo there, of intimidation, fear, anxiety, excessively low staff morale at the SABC. What are the recommendations that were put forward in order to turn this around?
Well, he did recommend a number of committees that must be appointed, one looking into the ethics of journalism. There's also another committee that he has appointed just to look into the day runnings of the SABC, looking specifically on the editorial issues as well. He also spoke of a need for things like workshops, things like team building, to bring people together at the SABC. But basically, he was basically saying that it needs to be renewed. It needs a new lease on life, basically. And
that the GE of news basically needs to be the one at the helm of decision-making for news.
Of course.
Well, thank you so much, Mbali, for joining us this afternoon. Now,